Welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today, we are going to discuss the important issues appearing in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 5th July 2018. Let's begin. Now, today, the first news pertains to the decision of the Supreme Court with respect to role of Lieutenant Governor for Delhi, and this news appears along the stretch of the newspaper, as you can see on page number 1, where it says LG bound by aid and advice of Delhi government, says Constitution bench. So this decision of the Supreme Court is by a Constitution bench, and this becomes a very important news. Again on page number 1, another news along with this appears. It's collaborative federalism, says the bench. Now this word collaborative federalism now gains significance with respect to the concept of federal structure in our constitution, and as you know, questions have been asked on the concept of cooperative federalism in the past. Now, on page number 8 in the editorial section, the same news appears and it has been explained in detail. It reads, How to rule Delhi. The Supreme Court clarifies an elected government cannot be undermined by an unelected administrator. So the entire judgment boils down to the role of an elected government as well as an unelected administrator for the National Capital Territory of Delhi. Further, this news appears also on page number 11, where it reads, Delhi as capital belongs to the nation as a whole. Now this news with respect to Delhi CM and the LG becomes equally important because a question was asked in the year 2016. The question read, discuss the essentials of 69th Constitutional Amendment Act and anomalies, if any, that had led to the recent reported conflicts between the elected representatives and the institution of Lieutenant Governor in the administration of Delhi. Do you think this will give rise to a new trend in the functioning of Indian federal politics? So this word federal gains significance again. So you can understand that this news with respect to Delhi LG versus Delhi CM is not new and has been in vogue since 2016. And there were prior judgments with respect to this tiff between the LG as well as the Chief Minister of Delhi. Now this news was also covered in our Focus magazine of December 2017 edition. So before going into the extracts of judgment so as to understand what the Supreme Court has said, let us understand certain basic facts about Delhi first as well as about Balakrishnan Committee. First of all, status of Delhi. It says Delhi is neither a state nor a union territory. It used to be a full-fledged union territory till 1991 when the 69th Constitutional Amendment gave it a special status. Remember, the question asked was particularly on 69th Constitutional Amendment. Hence, it becomes very important for us to understand the essence of 69th Constitutional Amendment as well. So it says the amendment, that is the 69th Amendment, declared the Union Territory of Delhi to be formally known as National Capital Territory of Delhi. However, of late, we have seen a certain controversy. The controversy was related to the tussle on administrative issues between LG of Delhi and Delhi's Chief Minister have led to the paralysis of work due to discretionary power by the LG in administrative decisions. So, this discretionary power given to the LG became one of the main issues with respect to controversy between an elected government and an unelected administrator. And in this respect, High Court in 2016 had given a judgment where it held that the LG, that is LG of Delhi, is the administrative head of National Capital Territory of Delhi and not the Chief Minister of Delhi. And Delhi continues to be a union territory rather than a full-fledged state. So this decision of Delhi High Court also reclaimed that LG of Delhi is the administrative head. This further complicated the problem and the Delhi government went in appeal to the Supreme Court of India. In this respect, it becomes very important to understand some of the constitutional provisions with respect to a union territory and also with respect to Delhi. First of all, Article 239. Article 239 provides for administration of union territories, where it says that UT shall be administered by the President through an administrator to be appointed by the President. So an administrator is appointed by the President. Now this Article 239A, which was added by Constitution 14th Amendment, that Article 239A provides for creation of local legislatures or Council of Ministers for certain union territories. So the 14th Amendment of the Constitution provided for a creation of Council of Ministers for a union territory. Now comes Article 239 AA, specifically for the National Capital Territory of Delhi. Article 239 AA of the Indian Constitution was added by the Constitution 69th Amendment. It says that Union Territory of Delhi shall be called the National Capital Territory of Delhi, and the administrator thereof, appointed under Article 239, shall be designated as the Lieutenant Governor, and there shall be a Legislative Assembly for the NCT of Delhi, and seats in such assembly shall be filled by members chosen by direct election. We can see that the Union Territory of Delhi could have a Legislative Assembly, and members of such Legislative Assembly can be chosen by a direct election. It further says that Legislative Assembly of Delhi shall have power to make laws for the whole or any part of NCT with respect to any matters enumerated in the state list or in the concurrent list. So this becomes very important. However, there were certain exceptions. It said that Legislative Assembly of Delhi could not make laws on following entries under state list, such as public order, police, and land. So on public order, police, and land, the government of Delhi could not make any laws. It further says that there shall be a council of ministers consisting of not more than 10% of the total number of members in the Legislative Assembly. It further says that if there is opinion of difference between the Lieutenant Governor and his minister on any matter, the LG shall refer it to the President for decision and act according to the decision given by the President. Now, after going through these certain basic facts, let us go through the extract of the judgment and what does the judgment say on various points. So the pressure point with respect to this judgment, as we have discussed earlier, was that who had primacy. So the whole issue boiled down on the issue of primacy in terms of administrative decision, whether the LG had the primacy or the CM. So it said that LG of Delhi was under this impression that he had the authority to refer any matter to the President for consultation, and here any matter also refers to all matters. So the LG was under the impression that he could refer all matters to the President for consultation. It further says this effectively tilted the balance in favor of the center, as some of the decisions of Delhi government were blocked by the Lieutenant Governor. Even the Delhi High Court in 2016 judgment concurred with the view of LG. So this was the pressure point where the entire matter rested on. So let's understand the extracts of the judgment based on this pressure point. As you can read, essence of the judgment. The essence of the judgment, it says that Supreme Court has now clarified that an elected government of Delhi cannot be undermined by an unelected administrator, and has effectively restored the primary role played by the representative government. So three keywords comes here. The three keywords are elected government, unelected administrator, and role of representative government. So this is exactly the essence of the judgment, that the elected government of Delhi cannot be undermined by an unelected administrator, and this has effectively restored the primary role played by the representative government. So after understanding the essence of the judgment, let's find out what Supreme Court has said on different accounts. On the concept of aid and advice, the Supreme Court has said that the Lieutenant Governor has no independent decision making power. He has to either act on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers, or is bound to implement the decision taken by the President on a reference being made by him. So this becomes very important decision with respect to role of Lieutenant Governor of Delhi. It further says, in case of difference of opinion, the LG should straight away refer the dispute to the President for a final decision without sitting over it or stultifying the governance in the national capital. Now this matter raised by Supreme Court regarding sitting over a issue becomes very important, as it impacts the governance in the capital because of the pendency of the decision by the Lieutenant Governor. It further talks about the role of LG. It says the governance of Delhi cannot rest upon the whims of one functionary, that is LG, as he cannot refer every matter of Delhi government to the president. This again becomes a very important point, that the lieutenant governor cannot refer every matter to the president for his consultation. The bench further cautioned the LG against sending every trivial dispute with the government to the president and suggested that LG must work harmoniously with his ministers. So, harmonious working of LG with that of the elected government becomes another crucial point. It further says the bench advised both CM and LG of Delhi, who holds constitutional post, to work in a collaborative manner so as to fulfill the concept of collaborative federalism as envisaged in our constitution. Thus, this concept of collaborative federalism again becomes very important. Now, let us understand this concept of collaborative federalism. It refers to collaborative nature of functioning of the union along with states so as to ensure development and progress. It further says that the concept of collaborative federalism applies to Delhi owing to its special status under the constitution. So, this word collaborative federalism now gains extreme significance with respect to our UPSC examination. In this respect, the bench said the union government and the state governments should endeavor to address the common problems with the intention of arriving at a solution. So, the Supreme Court focused on the point of intention to arrive at a given solution by showing statesmanship, combined action, and sincere cooperation. It further says that in collaborative federalism, the union and the state governments should express their readiness to achieve the common objective and work together for it. So, the whole essence of collaborative federalism lies in achieving common objective and working together for the progress of the nation. Thus, the concept of collaborative federalism becomes extremely important for us to understand from a UPSC point of view. Further, the Supreme Court, in its judgment, where it says it's the people who are sovereign and the decision of the elected government in Delhi represent the people's will or the public will, perception, and popular sentiment. So, this representative government also refers to the public will, public perception, as well as popular sentiment, and this cannot be undermined. It further says Supreme Court observed that a well deliberated legitimate decision of Council of Ministers cannot be stymied by the negative attitude of LG. Thus, Supreme Court cautioned the LG with respect to decision of the Council of Ministers, as the Council of Ministers represents member elected by the people. So the entire judgment comes down on the concept of representative democracy, where will of the people is sovereign. It further says that a negative attitude of LG also impacts the concept of collective responsibility, and in this respect it is emphatically submitted that if the collective responsibility of the Council of Ministers is not given the expected weightage, there will be corrosion of the essential feature of representative government. So this entire concept of representative government comes from the concept of sovereignty of people. In the judgment, the Supreme Court, however, rejected the demand of statehood by the Delhi government, where the court did not agree on the demand of full statehood of Arvind Kejriwal government and said that the powers over police, land, as well as public order still remained with the center. And the Supreme Court took the reference of Balakrishnan Committee report to conclude that Delhi is not a full-fledged state. As you remember, we had already seen under Article 239 AA that the Legislative Assembly of Delhi do not have power to make laws under public order, police, as well as land under various entries of state lists. And this is what exactly the Supreme Court has ordered. As far as syllabus is concerned, it covers under GS paper 2, specifically under functions and responsibility of union and the states and challenges pertaining to the federal structure, devolution of powers and finance. Thus, this news of Supreme Court judgment with respect to elected government of Delhi and unelected administrator becomes extremely crucial for you to understand from our UPSC point of view. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears on page number 8. The news reads, Freedom from being India locked. After his visit to China, the Nepal Prime Minister KP Oli continues to ride a populist wave. Now, this article pertains to the recent visit of Nepal Prime Minister KP Oli to China and also Nepal's growing and nurturing relationship with China, which can be considered as a concern with respect to India. As you all know that Nepal is a landlocked country and Nepal in this respect is dependent on India for transit to seas and is completely dependent on India for its transit rights. So let us go through the provision of this article and try and understand how this visit of Prime Minister of Nepal to China is a cause of concern for India. It says Nepal Prime Minister KP Oli had earlier visited China in 2016 where he managed to push the agenda of trade and transit agreement with China. The visit by the Prime Minister KP Oli again in 2018 has now taken lead with China to form an alternative transit route. So this alternative transit route through China becomes a very interesting development with respect to India-Nepal relationship. In this respect, Nepal will be connected with China through railway network, road network, optical fiber cables and electricity transmission lines. And it is in this respect that China will use its Belt and Road Initiative, that is BRI, to expand its connectivity outreach to Nepal. And here, Nepal will utilize the alternatives provided by this BRI to further expand its economic growth. Growing proximity of Nepal with China also in a way signals strained relationship with India. As we all know that India has opposed the Belt and Road Initiative of China. So in the backdrop of growing relationship between Nepal and China and also this Belt and Road Initiative coming close to Nepal becomes a cause of concern for India. The article then highlights these cause of concern for India where it says that it reduces Nepal's dependency on Indian ports and road network for transit. Obviously because the Belt and Road Initiative provides an alternative route to Nepal to access to ports and seas. It further says that it reduces India's hegemony as a supplier of electricity to Nepal. It further says that Nepal can become a large conduit for Chinese goods to Indian markets. Thus, India fears that Chinese goods may come to India via Nepal. So, all these can be said as a cause of concern for India. Then, the question is what should be the way forward with respect to straining of ties between India and Nepal? It says that India needs to realize that Nepal is nurturing relations with China which may prove costly for India in the longer term. Thus, India needs to be proactive and redefine its term of engagement with Nepal. Thus, with respect to growing relationship of Nepal with China, India really needs to redefine its terms of engagement with Nepal. So after going through the discussion, let's go through a particular question. The question reads, discuss the reasons for growing strains between India-Nepal relationship, suggest suitable measures to redefine India's term of engagement with Nepal. Now I'm sure after going through the discussion on India-Nepal relationship and also with respect to the landlocked nature of Nepal with respect to India, that Nepal in a way is showing proximity towards China and Nepal with China is trying to form an alternative transit route basically through railways, road network, optical fibers and electricity transmission lines. Thus, the question is asking to suggest suitable measures to redefine India's term of engagement with Nepal in the given backdrop of growing proximity of Nepal with China. This topic gets covered under GS paper 2, specifically under international relations. Can be defined here as India and its neighborhood relations. So this news on proximity of Nepal with China becomes very important with respect to UPSC examination. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears on page number 8 in the lead article section. It says the paradox of job growth. Besides the missing informal sector, overestimation of output growth also offers clues. Now this article effectively deals about a paradox between high growth and less jobs. This article highlights that despite government claim of a high growth, it does not show in terms of creation of jobs. Thus, the author effectively questions the nature of data collection of the government. Further, it talks about data of jobs not credible enough. So, it effectively questions the data collected by the government with respect to jobs. And it again says that the data does not capture losses which resulted due to the demonetization. So let's see this article in this particular backdrop. Previously, questions have already been asked in the year 2015 as well as in 2016 on job growth as well as development. Let's see what was asked in 2015. The question asked was, the nature of economic growth in India in recent times is often described as jobless growth. Do you agree with this view? Give arguments in favor of your answer. In 2016, the question asked was, how globalization has led to the reduction of employment in the formal sector of the Indian economy. Is increased informalization detrimental to the development of the country? So let's go through this particular article so as to understand what these questions are asking. So the context of this particular article is that Central Statistics Office in its report titled Payroll Reporting in India and Employment Perspective of April 2018 has claimed that the economy has added 4.1 million new jobs in the formal sector between 2017 and April 2018. The author in this particular article not only contradicts the claim of the CSO, that is Central Statistic Office, but also question the method used to calculate growth rate of the country. And according to the author, this paradox is aptly reflected that despite having a 7% GDP growth rate, the economy is unable to generate enough employment. So in this article, let's go through the reasons provided by the author to sustain his claims. As per the author, the employment data seems questionable on empirical as well as conceptual considerations. At empirical level, the author says that estimates are based on administrative records of implementing the social security schemes, whose completeness, consistency, as well as accuracy are unknown. It then says, since a formal sector worker can legitimately access to more than one social security scheme, double counting is a distinct possibility. So the author in this article also suggests that due to a person who is in the formal sector who is using more than one social security scheme, hence this concept of double counting becomes a distinct possibility. Hence, at empirical level, the author questions the data collected by the government. At the conceptual level, the author has suggested that because of formalization of jobs, most of these people have get coverage under the social security measures such as Employment Provident Fund. So the formalization of jobs has converted these informal jobs into formal ones, and this conversion of informal job into formal jobs is seen as a rise in employment level. However, there is no case of any new generation of job. It further talks about limitations of data captures, where it says the data captures only organized sector employee, which is merely 15% of India's labor force. Hence, this data capture of only organized sector employee has its own limitations. Thus, the informal sector, which accounts for roughly 85% of the workforce, is hardly collected, and these pertain to agriculture and the non-farm informal sector. Thus, there are certain limitations with respect to data capture, as it does not capture the informal sector, which effectively comprises 85% of the workforce. Thus, in this article, the author effectively contradicts the claim of Central Statistic Office with respect to data on creation of job, as it also questions the method of calculating growth rate in the country. This topic becomes important. As you can see, questions have been asked in the year 2015 as well as in 16, first on jobless growth and then on reduction of employment due to globalization. And it also asked that whether increased informalization is detrimental to the development of the country. So this article on paradox of job growth becomes very important with respect to your UPSC examination. In your syllabus, it gets covered under GS paper 3, specifically under Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resources, growth, development and employment. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears on page number 9. The news reads, fuel, getting the right mix. The government must roll back taxes on fuel and increase ethanol supply. So this article primarily focuses on reduction of tax on fuel and also increase of ethanol supply. So let's go through this particular article, what the author in this has to suggest. In this article, the author starts by talking about inconsistency in the policy on biofuels, where the author says that in the past, government has changed its target on the National Biofuels Policy several times, where in 2003 the ethanol blended program focused on 5% blending of molasses based ethanol with petrol. Then in 2008 it pushed for the blending target to 10%. So this target of 5% was increased to 10%. Thereafter, the National Biodiesel Mission proposed a two-phase strategy for biodiesel production from Jatropha seeds to achieve 10% blending mandate with diesel by 2012. However, the previous targets remained unachieved. Yet in 2009, the National Policy on Biofuel proposed a revised target of 20% blending for ethanol and biodiesel by the year 2017, and this is yet to be achieved. So this is what the author starts by talking about regarding inconsistency in the policy regarding blending of biofuels. Thus, the author focuses on the inconsistent policy making in the blending of biofuel. It then talks about blending of ethanol, where it says India has a very poor 2 to 4% blending rate and is woefully short of the original target of 5% because of inconsistent supply of domestically produced ethanol. So author suggests that because of inconsistent supply of ethanol in the market, the blending rate has been woefully short of earlier target of 5%. It further says that in other countries, fuel blending with ethanol varies from 85% in Australia to vehicles run on 100% ethanol in Brazil. Thus, the author compares blending rate of other countries with respect to India. Now, in this regard, the government priorities in implementing the biofuel policy were to find a solution to rising air pollution in the atmosphere, maintaining affordable transportational fuel prices, which we all know to be rising in the present circumstances, to promote clean and sustainable fuels in the market, move towards energy and self-sufficiency, as well as to reduce dependence on crude oil imports. Thus, these were the objectives to be achieved with respect to biofuel policy. The author then highlights certain issues with respect to the new biofuel policy. It says, in the present day scenario, petrol is blended with cancer causing imported aromatics to boost octane rating of fuel, and this has negative consequences on health. It further says that excessive expenditure from the exchequer is sought to be made by National Biofuel Policy to produce second generation ethanol, and this second generation ethanol is yet not being used on a commercial scale in the international market. Further, the author suggests that the way in which companies have been selected for setting up 2G based biofuel refineries is ambiguous. Now 2G here refers to the second generation ethanol. So these are the issues with respect to biofuel policy as suggested by the author, where it says that in the present day, petrol is blended with cancer causing imported aromatics to boost octane rating. Now octane rating increases the efficiency of the vehicle. It then says that excessive money is being spent on the production of second generation ethanol, which has not yet found commercial usage in the international market. And then it suggests that the way in which companies have been selected to set up second generation based biofuel refineries remains ambiguous. Here, the second generation ethanol refers to certain advanced biofuels which can be manufactured from various types of non-food biomass, for example, farm waste and animal waste. And this second generation biofuels are made from different feedstocks and therefore may require different technology to extract useful energy from these feedstocks. In this respect, it is also important to know that the first generation biofuel are made from sugars and vegetable oils found in food crops using standard processing technologies. So this information on 2G ethanol and the first generation ethanol becomes extremely important. The author finally concludes by saying that what should be done. First of all, it suggests to decrease the fuel prices, and this should be done by rolling back the taxes on fuel. It then says the government also needs to demonstrate a clear thinking to increase ethanol production to reduce oil imports. It then talks about increase of ethanol production in the country. It then says that if necessary, then government should look at importing ethanol in the meanwhile, thereby creating consistent supply of ethanol, as a consistent supply of ethanol will serve as a substitute for expensive and harmful imported aromatics like BTX. Thus, the author suggests that these corrections in policy will lead to lower fuel prices and also cleaner air in the environment. And increase in ethanol production will also help in reducing the current account deficit, which is high due to increased oil import in the country. This news forms a part of GS paper 3, specifically under environment, under conservation, environmental pollution and degradation and environment impact assessment. So this article on reduction of tax on fuel and increase of ethanol supply becomes very important from our exam perspective, and also because the government has come up with a new biofuel policy. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news also appears on page number 10. The news reads, Union Cabinet clears DNA profiling bill will help in forensic investigation. The Union Cabinet has cleared the DNA Technology Use and Application Regulation Bill 2018, and it provides for mandatory accreditation and regulation of DNA laboratories. It says this bill aims to provide for regulation of use and application of DNA, that is deoxyribonucleic acid technology, for the purposes of establishing the identity of certain categories of persons, including missing persons, victims, offenders, suspects, under trials, and unknown deceased persons. Thus, this bill aims to establish the identity of certain categories of individuals, including missing persons, victims, offenders, suspects to a criminal case, under trials, as well as unknown persons who are dead or deceased. Thus, this bill, that is DNA Technology Use and Application Regulation Bill, was drafted by Department of Biotechnology, and in this it says the bill allows the law enforcement agencies to collect DNA samples. Further, it allows them to create DNA profiles as well as to create special data banks for forensic and criminal investigations. So this use of DNA profiling will further help in enhancing and regulating the use of forensic science in criminal investigations. The use of forensic science in criminal investigations will not only help in enhancing credibility of criminal investigation but also help in solving the crimes with certainty as well as accuracy, and that too with using less time. Thus, the salient features of the bill can be said as it will help in expanding the application of DNA based forensic technologies to support and strengthen the justice delivery system of the country, as we just saw that how it will enhance the credibility of criminal investigation as well as help in solving crimes with certainty and accuracy, that too in less time. It will help in speedier justice delivery. It will increase conviction rate because of accuracy. It will enable cross matching between persons who have been reported missing or who are unidentified dead bodies found in various parts of the country, as well as to establish the identity of victims in cases of mass disasters like flood or any sort of accident. It further says that the bill provides for mandatory accreditation and regulation of DNA laboratories. This topic gets covered under GS paper 3, specifically under science and technology, developments and their application in effects in everyday life, awareness in the field of biotechnology. This topic also gets covered under GS paper 2, specifically under laws, institutions and bodies constituted for the protection and betterment of vulnerable sections of the society. Thus, this news on DNA profiling bill becomes very important with respect to a UPSC examination. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears on page number 10. The news reads, HEFA, that is Higher Education Financing Agency, to allot rupees 1 lakh crore for education. Now, this news pertains to granting allocation to the higher education sector for its growth and overall development. And in this respect, a question has already been asked in the year 2015, where it read, the quality of higher education in India requires major improvements to make it internationally competitive. Do you think that entry of foreign educational institutions would help improve the quality of higher and technical education in the country? Discuss. Now, to answer these questions, we need to understand what are the steps which are taken by the government towards the sector of higher education. So let's understand this news regarding grant of rupees 1 lakh crore for educational institutions. In this news, the Union Cabinet has permitted the Higher Education Financing Agency, that is HEFA, to mobilize rupees 1 lakh crore to fund research and academic infrastructure in higher educational institutions by the year 2022. These funds will also be available to the government-run schools, namely the Kendriya Vidyalayas as well as the Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalayas. This will help in building better infrastructure for these Kendriya Vidyalayas and Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalayas. It then says that Indian Institutes of Technology, National Institutes of Technologies, Indian Institutes of Science, Education and Research, and other central universities and medical colleges will also get funds from HEFA. So, all these institutions of national importance will receive funds from HEFA towards bettering of their infrastructure. Thus, it becomes important to understand this news about higher education and financing agencies. As we have seen, a question has already been asked with respect to the quality of higher education in India. In this respect, let us also understand some facts about HEFA. The Higher Education Financing Agency was set up to build crucial infrastructure in central higher educational institutions through extra budgetary resources. It then says HEFA is a joint venture company of Canara Bank and Ministry of Human Resource Development. So this becomes a key fact. Further says HEFA provides financial assistance for creation of educational infrastructure and research and development. Thus, funds from HEFA will help in creating educational infrastructure and also help in providing support to research and development programs of higher educational institutions. As you can see, the role of HEFA, where it says it helps in creating world-class foundation for India's higher education infrastructure by financing higher education infrastructure, providing finance to set up world-class research and development facilities, providing loans at competitive interests, and channelizing CSR funds, that is corporate social responsibility funds. Thus, all these facts with respect to HEFA becomes crucial. With respect to providing funds, it says HEFA will leverage funds from market and supplement them with donations and CSR funds for the following purposes: to support educational institutions by financing capital expenditure for developing quality infrastructure, encourage scientific and technological development by financing R&D facilities for conducting high quality research, and to increase investments in educational institutions and also to improve their global rankings. Thus, HEFA will help in providing quality infrastructure, will also help in the development of scientific and technological development and research, and will also help in improving global rankings of our national institutions. So, this news on HEFA becomes very important with respect to your UPSC examination. It gets covered under GS paper 2, specifically under issues relating to development and management of education. Thus, this news on HEFA, which will allot 1 lakh crore for education, becomes extremely crucial from our UPSC point of view. With this, we come to an end to discussion of today's newspaper. Please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for daily DNS updates. With this, let's move on to the question for the day.